Google just placed a $32 billion bet, and they did it on a startup that is barely 5 years old. What is even more shocking is that this company was not born in Silicon Valley or New York. It emerged from the heart of the Middle East, a desert where rockets fly overhead. This is a country with not a single drop of oil. It is a nation that was attacked by 5 countries simultaneously the moment it was founded. In this barren land, where more than half the territory is nothing but sandstorms, how did a monster economy emerge that has now overtaken South Korea in per capita income? Israel's GDP per capita has surpassed $54,000, and over 100 of its companies are listed on the Nasdaq. Even amidst the fires of war, it remains the only country where the world top investors are lining up to pour in their cash. Today, we are opening up the hidden engine behind this incredible structure, where the military becomes a startup academy, where the government compensates for business losses if a company fails, and where a desert water shortage birthed the world #1 technology. By the end of this video, you will fully understand the paradox of how a country with nothing became one of the wealthiest on Earth. Before we dive in, please hit subscribe and like. Let us get started. When Israel first appeared on the world stage in May 1948, it truly had nothing. Over 60% of the land was desert, and arable land was the size of a palm. What happened immediately after the Declaration of Independence was even more horrific. 5 neighboring countries, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq, invaded all at once. The newborn nation's very survival was threatened before it could even let out its first cry. The war seemed endless, and every day, refugees expelled from Europe flooded in. With a shortage of food, housing, and clothing, all while footing the bill for a massive war, national bankruptcy was a looming reality. They had to buy guns and tanks in a country without a single proper factory, relying on donations from Jewish communities worldwide to barely scrape by. Yet, this desperate situation pushed Israel in a completely different direction. Unlike Arab nations, they could not pump oil out of the ground. Unlike China, they did not have a surplus of cheap labor. They had only one choice: to find answers in the human mind. They decided to bet everything on technology and education. Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, famously said that since there is no oil in the ground, we will squeeze oil from the human brain. From its earliest days, Israel poured a massive portion of its national budget into education and scientific research. While neighbors built palaces with oil money, Israel built universities and research labs. This was when the Hebrew University and the Technion began to grow, laying the foundation for a long line of Nobel Prize winners. Peace, however, did not follow. Between 1956 and 1973, they fought 4 major wars. The country almost disappeared 4 times in a single generation. This constant threat forged Israel into the world's most efficient military tech power. Communication encryption and precision sensor technologies developed on the battlefield became the seeds for civilian industries. Most importantly, they chose a unique economic model. Instead of a manufacturing-centered economy like Korea or Japan, they chose a knowledge industry where ideas themselves are the product. With no land for massive factories and a domestic market smaller than half of Seoul, they targeted the global market from day one. Instead of building giants like Samsung or Toyota, they developed core technologies and sold them as licenses. In economics, there is a term called the resource curse, where resource-rich countries fail to diversify. Israel is the polar opposite, a blessing of scarcity. In December 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. As the Iron Curtain lifted, it triggered the largest migration of human brains in history. About 1 million Russian Jews packed their bags for Israel. At the time, Israel's population was only 4.8 million. Suddenly, the population grew by 20% in just a few years. It was as if 10 million people suddenly moved to South Korea. The specs of these immigrants were incredible. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union spent astronomical sums training scientists and engineers for the space race. Physicists who designed rocket engines, acoustic engineers who built sonar for nuclear submarines, and math geniuses who swept the International Math Olympiad were all landing at Tel Aviv airport with nothing but old suitcases. The problem was that Israel was not ready, jobs were scarce, and immigrants who did not know Hebrew had nowhere to go. Quantum mechanics professors were sweeping streets, and missile guidance experts were driving taxis. Seeing this, the government realized they had essentially received billions of dollars worth of Soviet-trained talent for free. If they let this talent rot or leave for the United States, they would lose the opportunity of a lifetime. They made a radical decision. Instead of trying to find these scientists jobs in existing companies, they created a platform for them to start their own businesses. They launched technology incubators, providing offices, seed funding, and mentors to help translate military tech into civilian business. The results were beyond imagination. Soviet missile algorithms became cybersecurity software. Submarine communication tech turned into fiber optic equipment. Satellite imaging tech became the eyes for autonomous driving. Israel harvested the fruits of decades of Soviet military investment. But one piece was still missing: capital. In 1993, the Israeli government launched Yozma, which means initiative. It was a crazy idea, using taxpayer money for venture capital, but with conditions that ripped up the economic textbooks. At the time, no one wanted to invest in a tiny country where missiles flew. The government told foreign investors that if they invest and the venture fails, the government will swallow most of the loss. If it succeeds, the investor keeps the profit. They even gave investors a call option to buy out the government share at a low price. It was a 4-to-6 split between the government and private sector, but the government carried almost all the risk. Essentially, they told Wall Street that we will play the stock market together. If we lose, I will pay you back. If we win, you take it all. It sounds absurd, but Israel was desperate to unlock the potential of its technology. Wall Street giants and European venture capitals flocked to Tel Aviv. Within 7 years, the venture market exploded tenfold, and 23 Yozma-backed companies listed on the NASDAQ. Crucially, the government knew when to leave. Once the ecosystem became self-sustaining, the government sold its shares and stepped out, avoiding the trap of state-controlled finance. They proved that the government taking on risk is entirely different from the government controlling the market. In most countries, time in the military is seen as a gap in your resume. In Israel, it is the opposite. If you have 4 specific numbers on your resume, Unit 8200, Silicon Valley investors will call you first. Unit 8200 is an elite cyber intelligence unit. They intercept communications, defend against cyber attacks, and infiltrate enemy systems. Every year, they recruit the top math and science prodigies from high schools. These 18-year-olds start their careers in bunkers, not classrooms. They do not deal with textbook examples. They deal with real wars, analyzing nuclear facility networks, and decrypting hostile communications in real time. This leads naturally to startups. Over 1,000 companies have been founded by 8,200 alumni. Names like Checkpoint, Palo Alto Networks, and Mobileye all trace back to this unit. Navigation app Waze was sold to Google for $1.3 billion. The ultimate example of this is Wiz. On March 12, 2026, Google officially completed the acquisition of Israeli cloud security firm Wiz for $32 billion. It was an all-cash deal, the largest acquisition in Google history. Wiz was founded by Asaf Rappaport and 3 of his comrades from Unit 8200. They launched in 2020 and hit $100 million in recurring revenue in just 18 months, the fastest in software history. In this deal alone, the Israeli government collected about $3 billion in taxes. This was not just a corporate sale. It was proof of how military grit turns into global dominance. Israel's innovation is not just digital. It started with the most basic need: water. With 60% of the country being the Negev desert, survival was impossible without water. While neighbors had the Nile, Israel had thirst. In the 1960s, an engineer named Simcha Blas noticed a tree growing larger than others because of a tiny leak in a pipe. He realized that dropping small amounts of water directly at the roots was more efficient than flooding a field. This became drip irrigation. Today, the company Netafim exports this tech to 110 countries. They did not stop there. Israel now leads the world in desalination, extracting 80% of its drinking water from the sea. They recycle 90% of their wastewater. Defense follows the same logic. The Iron Dome is a masterpiece that catches rockets in the sky. But because interceptor missiles are expensive, Israel developed a laser defense system that can shoot down drones or missiles for just $1 to $2 per shot. These military eyes then become civilian eyes. The algorithms used to track rockets are now used in Mobileye autonomous cars to recognize pedestrians. For Israel, technology is not for academic papers, it is a tool for survival. Spending 6% of their GDP on research and development is not a luxury. It is an insurance policy for today. Israel's success is not luck. It is a combination of the desperation to fill scarcity with technology, the wisdom of a government that takes on risk, and a military that serves as the nation's top talent pipeline. Google did not just buy a company for $32 billion. They bet on a system that creates something out of nothing. Any country facing resource scarcity or security threats, the desert equation of Israel is a powerful textbook. What do you think is the most important lesson we can learn from the Israeli model? Let me know in the comments.